Today is February 2nd. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I'm an alcoholic. It is an honor, thrill, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 9, The Family Afterward, pages 127 through 130. And we're going to be reading Step 5 from the 12 and 12, pages 59 through 61. So with all that, let's go ahead and get to the Big Book. Alright guys, we're on the second paragraph of page 127. The head of the house ought to remember that he is mainly to blame for what befell his home. He can scarcely square the account in his lifetime, but he must see the danger of over-concentration on financial success. Although financial recovery is on the way for many of us, we found that we cannot place money first. For us, material well-being always followed spiritual progress. It never preceded. Since the home has suffered more than anything else, it is well that a man exert himself there. He is not likely to get far in any direction if he fails to show unselfishness and love under his own roof. We know that there are difficult wives and families, but the man who is getting over alcoholism must remember he did much to make them so. As each member of a resentful family begins to see his shortcomings and admits them to others, he lays a basis for helpful discussion. These family talks will be constructive if they can be carried on without heated argument, self-pity, self-justification, or resentful criticism. Little by little, mother and children will see that they ask too much, and father will see that he gives too little. Giving rather than getting will become the guiding principle. Assume, on the other hand, that father has, at the outset, a stirring spiritual experience. Overnight, as it were, he is a different man. He becomes a religious enthusiast. He is unable to focus on anything else. As soon as his sobriety begins to be taken as a matter of course, the family may look at their strange new dad with apprehension and then with irritation. There is talk about spiritual matters morning, noon, and night. He may demand that the family find God in a hurry, or exhibit amazing indifference to them and say that he is above worldly considerations. He may tell mother, who has been religious all her life, that she doesn't know what it's all about, and that she had better get his brand of spirituality while there is yet time. When father takes this tack, the family may react unfavorably. They may be jealous of a God who has stolen dad's affections. While grateful that he drinks no more, they may not like the idea that God has accomplished the miracle where they failed. They often forget that father was beyond human aid. They may not see why their love and devotion did not straighten him out. Dad is not so spiritual after all, they say. If he means to right his past wrongs, why all this concern for everyone in the world but his family? What about his talk that God will take care of them? They suspect that his father is a bit balmy. He is not so unbalanced as they might think. Many of us have experienced dad's elation. We have indulged in spiritual intoxication. Like a gaunt prospector, belt drawn in over the last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. Joy at our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. Father feels that he has struck something better than gold. For a time, he might try to hug the new treasure for himself. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load which will pay dividends only if he mines it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. If the family cooperates, Dad will soon see that he is suffering from a distortion of values. He will perceive that his spiritual growth is lopsided. That for an average man like himself, a spiritual life which does not include his family obligations may not be so perfect after all. If the family will appreciate that Dad's current behavior is but a phase of his development, all will be well. In the midst of an understanding and sympathetic family, these vagaries of Dad's spiritual infancy will quickly disappear. The opposite may happen should the family condemn or criticize. Dad may feel that for years his drinking has placed him on the wrong side of every argument, but that now he has become a superior person with God on his side. If the family persists in criticism, this fallacy may take a still greater hold on father. Instead of treating the family as he should, he may retreat further into himself and feel that he has spiritual justification for doing so. Though the family does not fully agree with Dad's spiritual activities, they should let him have his head. even if he displays a certain amount of neglect and irresponsibility towards the family. It is well to let him go as far as he likes in helping other alcoholics. During those first days of convalescence, this will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. Though some of his manifestations are alarming and disagreeable, we think that Dad will be on a firmer foundation than the man who is placing business or professional success ahead of spiritual development. He will be less likely to drink again, and anything is preferable to that. All right, that concludes our reading in the Big Book today. Definitely want to come back to that in just a minute. All right, guys, we are in the heart of Step 5. We're on the bottom of page 59. We're going to be reading 59 through 61 today. At this stage, the difficulties of trying to deal rightly with God by ourselves are twofold. Though we may at first be startled to realize that God knows all about us, we are apt to get used to that quite quickly. Somehow, being alone with God doesn't seem as embarrassing as facing up to another person. Until we actually sit down and talk aloud about what we have so long hidden, our willingness to clean house is still largely theoretical. When we are honest with another person, it confirms that we have been honest with ourselves and with God. The second difficulty is this. What comes to us alone may be garbled by our own rationalization and wishful thinking. The benefit of talking to another person is that we can get his direct comment and counsel on our situation, and there can be no doubt in our minds what that advice is. Going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. How many times have we heard well-intentioned people claim the guidance of God when it was all too plain that they were sorely mistaken? Lacking both practice and humility, they had deluded themselves and were able to justify the most errant nonsense on the ground that this was what God had told them. It is worth noting that people of very high spiritual development almost always insist on checking with friends or spiritual advisors the guidance they feel that they have received from God. Surely then, a novice ought not to lay himself open to the chance of making foolish, perhaps tragic blunders in this fashion. While the comment or advice of others may be by no means infallible, it is likely to be far more specific than any direct guidance we may receive while we were still so inexperienced in establishing contact with a power greater than ourselves. Our next problem will be to discover the person in whom we are to confide. Here, we ought to take much care, remembering that prudence is a virtue which carries high rating. Perhaps we shall need to share with this person facts about ourselves which no others ought to know. We shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who not only stayed dry, but has been able to surmount other serious difficulties. Difficulties perhaps like our own. This person may turn out to be one's sponsor, but not necessarily so. If you have developed a high confidence in him, and his temperament and problems are close to your own, then such a choice will be good. Besides, your sponsor already has the advantage of knowing something about your case. All right, great stopping point for today. While this is fresh, I think it's really interesting here that it says, consider who you're going to confide in. And I don't know if I've talked about that yet. I had to pick the right person, somebody I felt comfortable around, somebody that I felt had great sobriety, that was just very attractive to me, and this particular person was just very calm, collected, non-judgmental, but wise. And I always, would perk up when he would share his experience, strength, and hope. And it was somebody I had actually built a friendship with over time. And I asked him to be the one that I could do my fifth step with. There was a lot of things I had to get off my chest early on in my recovery. And he was the first person I really gravitated toward. And I will always thank God for him. And he's still in my circle, and I'm so grateful for him. But yeah, I've shared it many times what he did for me during the fifth step. But choose wisely, my friends, in whoever we decide we want to confide in, if we decide we want to do that, because the right person can do wonders for your soul. The wrong person can be very damaging. I've heard some horror stories of that. Oh, and another thing too is speaking of horror stories, I'll speak of my own experience. In doing the steps the first time, I was very overzealous about making direct amends to everyone. And, I thought that would be what God would want me to do. And then I voiced exactly what I was going to do to my sponsor. And he said, are you doing this because God wants you to do this, or are you doing this to clear your own conscience? And then he said, consider the other people that might be involved. Are you sure this is a good idea? You may be doing more harm than good. And I hadn't thought of it that way. And that's the big thing. I wanted to avoid doing harm. I wanted to right my wrongs, not create more mistakes. So by me talking to my sponsor, getting a second opinion on this whole thing, he gave me a new perspective that really helped me to do more good than harm. And I'm very grateful for that. And going back to the big book real quick about the family, I'm so grateful. There's one part in here, I can understand why the family would feel neglected at first and things like this. So I'm so grateful that on the second paragraph of 129, it says, if the family ever cooperates, Dad will soon see that he is suffering from distortion of values. He will perceive that his spiritual growth is lopsided. That for an average man like himself, a spiritual life which does not include his family obligations may not be so perfect after all. If the family will appreciate that Dad's current behavior is but a phase of his development, all will be well. I'm a grateful husband and a father of 2 children. I think I've learned overall in my spiritual growth. And again, I can only speak of my own experience. I lose everything if I start drinking. I lose all the people I love if I start drinking. But the people that matter to me the most, my little family. How do you spell love to my 2 children? It's Time. Spending time with them. And it's a difficult balance. I'm not saying I got it completely right. I try to help as many alcoholics as I can. But also, at the same time, I'm trying to be the best husband I can be and the best father I can be to my children. Because again, time is so precious. It's a difficult balance. I don't know anybody that gets it exactly perfectly right. I am grateful for this paragraph in here that it does acknowledge, hey, his spiritual values may be a little lopsided if he's neglecting his family. So I'm grateful that's there. And I'm very grateful you guys have tuned in today. And I do want to apologize. I have been speaking of overzealous earlier, I've been a little overzealous in our reading plan here. My goal is to have the big book and the 12 and 12 completely read by July 1st. And maybe start all over after that. I haven't decided yet. But at the rate I'm going to finish much sooner than that. So I'm slowing down a little bit. I hope you all don't mind. But anyways, guys, once again, I am grateful you're here. Thank you so much for just joining me in this lifeboat of recovery as we journey through these 2 books that truly saved my life and continue to work wonders in my life. And I have no agenda. I don't speak on behalf of AA, any denomination, sect, or anything like that. I just want to go through something daily for my own accountability. And it is a major blessing if I can help somebody else in doing this. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Keep warm, and looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.